Can you hear me, everybody? Good. Now, the reason I ask is that a little while ago I did a radio program all about Matisse and those famous cutouts he did towards the end of his life. And I did the radio program. It went out in the morning on Radio 4. And that evening I went to the National Theatre, and a woman sitting in front of me turned around and said, "Are you the man who did that program about Matisse?" And the woman next to her said, "He did a program about your teeth." So it's actually quite important that you hear me loud and clear, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome, to reiterate, to this reception to celebrate the Creative Dimension Trust, dedicated to inspiring young people through the practice of a craft, inspiring young people through learning under the best of guidance from international specialists how to make things, nurturing hand and eye skills. Now, the great poet and critic Herbert Reed, he was the man who helped to found the Institute of Contemporary Arts, and was a great poet and a great art critic. He wrote a little book, which I think is very underrated, called Education Through Art. And he once made the helpful distinction between teaching to art, craft and design, and teaching through art, craft and design. And his point was that whatever you end up doing, and whatever walk of life you're in, this kind of learning could be invaluable. Teaching to art and craft, he said, meant teaching the professional education of the young person, teaching someone the techniques and skills, the attitudes and aptitudes and knowledge of how to create things, and eventually how to find one's own voice. That's the grammar, and then when you become a practitioner, it's the usage. And that aspect of education, he felt, was widely understood. Teaching through art meant learning a series of wider related skills through the media of the arts, skills that art, craft and design seem particularly good at bringing out. In today's language, these skills included one or more of the following: problem solving, resourcefulness, independence of mind, flexible thinking, communication skills, concentration on the matter in hand, personal development tailored to the individual rather than learning by rote, confidence building, commitment and motivation, and the coordination of hand and brain. And finally, learning to see as well as to look. Which reminds me of, there was a celebrated New Yorker cartoon many years ago of which showed two harassed tourists rushing up the steps of the Louvre in Paris, the old entrance to the Louvre, and saying to the security man, "Where's the Mona Lisa? We're double parked." It's the opposite of that, learning to concentrate, to be attentive to detail, and that sort of thing. Above all, the learning of art and craft was a great preparation for an unpredictable world where the goalposts kept moving. And if Herbert Reed was right about that when he wrote the book in the mid-1940s, he would certainly be right about that perception today, the day after the American election and a few months after Brexit. The very best form of art, craft and design education, he said, combined the two, teaching to and teaching through, so that whatever the students end up doing after they leave school, they bring a creative, craftsmanlike or designerly attitude to it. And when I was rummaging around and thinking about tonight's reception, I found this in a drawer at home. And I don't make much claim for it, but I'll explain what it is. I don't make any claims for its art. It's a table mat woven by me on a hand loom at the age of 8, which took place in rural Sussex in the village of Ditchling in the early 1950s. And one morning, a group of school children, including me, walked crocodile fashion to a large bungalow in Ditchling called Gospels, and spent a memorable day being taught weaving on a large floor hand loom by a very elderly lady how to make a table mat. And she seemed very severe to me, and what I didn't know then, and it wouldn't have meant much to me if I did, was that the lady was the great weaver Ethel Mary, the lady who taught Gandhi how to spin and weave, and was a close associate of Eric Gill, Edward Johnston, and all the arts and crafts people in Ditchling. And I've kept the piece that I wove that afternoon, not for sentimental reasons, or as a kind of Linus's blanket for those who read Peanuts, but because a seed was planted that day. I can honestly say that the sense of achievement, excitement and fulfillment that I experienced, what educationalists call the intelligence of feeling, or the moment of illumination, or being in the zone. The fact that I'd found an answer, my answer, which somehow never happened with any of my other subjects, the fact that I had something tangible to take away at the end of the day completely changed my attitude towards the other subjects that I was studying. And for me, this was real motivation. And I still remember it, even though I didn't, of course, end up as a weaver. Actually, it's not bad, which suggests to me that Ethel Mary was leaning over me, telling me what to do. It's not bad for somebody the age of 8 anyway. That was in the early 1950s. So you may ask, why is this relevant and timely at this particular time? Well, if I can quote myself from a little book I did on craft a couple of years ago, here's some of the reasons. Craftsmanship is assailed on all sides by, among other tendencies, flexible working, portfolio careers, multitasking, short-termism, quick-fix training, mimicry, suspicion of expertise, confusion between elites and elitism, the downgrading of dedication, disconnection from the real world, quantitative targets, the value attached to presentation skills, outsourcing, will write it, they'll print it, the look at me culture, 15 minutes of fame, branding, one size fits all, the remote society, the redefinition of the word product, and the rapidity of technological change. And against these, the pleasure in making, the time taken in improving skills, and the contact with materials are just as important to the functioning of a modern society as ever they have been. So this is the right moment, and it's nothing to do with the past. The thing about the crafts is you mention the word craft and everyone immediately thinks of nostalgia and the arts and crafts movement and cobwebby things in the past. It's about the present, coming to terms with the present, and it's about the future. More specifically, in 2016, you can go through the whole education system, primary, secondary, and tertiary, without having any contact with materials, without making anything. Participation in craft-related subjects, including craft design technology, CDT, is in freefall in secondary schools because it's not part of the baccalaureate. And where higher education is concerned, according to the Crafts Council's latest statistics, between 2007 and 2013, the number of craft courses fell by 46%. Between 2007 and 2013, the number of craft courses fell by 46%. Because craft courses are labour-intensive, they take up a lot of space, they involve technicians and machinery and health and safety, they're dirty, and nobody's come up with a better way of teaching them than one-to-one, a gifted practitioner with a student. And for all these reasons, they've become an endangered species. And there's been a lot of publicity lately about how art history is dropping off the edge. There's been much less publicity about making. And this, I think, is where the Creative Dimension Trust comes in, providing, as it does, intensive courses for 14 to 18-year-olds in various locations under the best and most experienced guidance. And in 2014, when the idea was first mooted, there were not yet any crafts involved. In 2015, there were 2 crafts and 24 students. In 2016, there were 7 crafts, including gilding, carving and woodwork, and most of them are exhibited on the slides, stonework, hand engraving and mural painting, 7 crafts and 40 students in fully funded workshops. And there are plans, as Penny has said, for a lot more crafts in 2017. Plans for 10 summer schools, for Saturday schools, for the production of teaching videos, and a website which has gone live this very morning. Very good. The Trust, ladies and gentlemen, is a real success story, and it's on an upward curve, and it's a very, very good idea. And thanks are due to the various businesses, trusts, colleges and livery companies, including the carpenters, many of whom are in the room today, who've so generously supported it, and for those who will, for what we are about to receive. And very special thanks, of course, to Penny Bendel, who conceived the idea, championed it, energised it, made it happen, and is now the Chief Executive Officer of the Trust. Can you give Penny a round of applause? Finally, to bring all this into focus, I'd like to quote from a lecture given by the great critic John Ruskin in 1859 called The Two Paths. And by the way, don't believe what you see in the movies about John Ruskin. Ruskin's had a really bad press lately. 2 films, Mr. Turner and Effie Gray, where he came out as borderline psychotic in both cases. He was actually one of our greatest critics when he was on form, which was often. And here he is giving a lecture about art and craft education. The education of the young artist or craftsman should always be a matter of the head, the heart, and the hand. Art must always be produced by the subtlest of all machines, which is the human hand. No machine yet contrived or hereafter contrivable will ever equal the fine machinery of human fingers. But the best art is that which proceeds from the heart, which involves all the emotions, associates these with the head, yet as inferior to the heart, and the hand, yet as inferior to the heart and head. And thus we bring out the whole person. Congratulations to the creative dimension for doing so much to bring out the whole person. I think it's very important work that you're doing. And can I introduce to you now Philippa Charles, the director of the Garfield Weston Foundation, which has been very generous to this dimension, to tell you a little bit more. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.